15th April, Baker Street.
See? That's why I hate grown-ups. All they do is feed you a pack of lies and then take stuff away from you.
Oh, really, Miss Lestrade? Tell me, is that overcoat keeping you warm?
What? Oh my, surely you were given that. Yeah, they do let me keep it after Luke Dacker's hid him for long enough. He went through the pockets and then said, "Go on then, have it," before telling me to scarper. Always pays off giving people a look like you hate them.
I can't help feeling this is going to get you into serious trouble one day.
What I really wanted was that nice shiny disc, mind. That music box disc.
But Mr. Winterbank said it was practically worthless.
Oh, I think I'm going to go have another bash. Give him a long, hard stare.
I think not, Miss Lestrade. We shan't enter Winterbanks again today.
Why not? Well, it's not fair.
It can't be helped, I'm afraid. The police are investigating the scene now and taking a statement from Mr. Winterbank.
But that disc mine, I had the ticket for this coat, and it was in his coat's pocket. And there should be something else and all. That's what that Rogan Cove set was, isn't it?
Yeah, he did mention something about another article, didn't he?
Well, and there's mine too, whatever it is.
Now she's really pushing her luck.
Miss Lestrade, I think it's time to admit defeat. You've had your haul for the day.
Yeah, and it's all your fault, Sholmes.
So, what are your plans now? Will you dine with us this evening?
Eh?
Iris would be delighted to cook, I'm sure, and might entertain you. I might entertain you with a modest violin recital.
Netta.
Oh.
Well, I come round to your place, eh? And you're scared of something?
Bit of a Sundara going on there.
Oh dear, she's gone.
Having reviled on me quite unnecessarily, I might add.
I can't help wondering if perhaps she might turn up anyway.
Interesting.
Once she's had a chance to calm down, I think there's a good chance she'll decide to come.
Very well, then. I'll inform Iris to set a place for our potential guest at the dinner table this evening. And one more thing. I should be glad of your company later, too.
Sorry?
I believe I will have a rather splendid surprise to show you.
Oh, how exciting. What is it?
You shall have to wait and see, Mr. Sato. Until later, then. I forgot to do the intro. Hello, divers and detectives. My name is TV Sky. Welcome back to The Great Ace Attorney. We're well into case 2, and it's actually been like a week and a half since I recorded the last episode that you saw, which is part 1 of this case. So once again, there's always the fun that either like my voice has changed a little bit because it's at a different level of exhaustion, or that I've forgotten some of the voices I gave to the characters. So,
Look at all the different things in the window of the shop.
Ah, that's Winterbanks, the pawnbrokery.
It looks much smarter than a pawnbroker's in Japan's, doesn't it?
Yes, you're right. I find pawn shops at home rather inapproachable, personally.
It reminds me of tearfully parting with my favorite fountain pen. I felt so miserable.
What doesn't kill us makes us stronger, Mr. Naruhodo.
does it now? In my experience, what doesn't kill you just gives you aches and pains for days. Let's go to the legal consultancy first, see if anything happens. Nope. To the suite, then! "15th April, 3:46 p.m. Sholmes' suite.
Ah, Susie and Bruno, come in, come in.
Good afternoon, Iris.
Thank you so much for breakfast this morning. Oh, don't mention it. Goodness, look at the time already.
I'm not sure I can do Iris's voice properly because, like, I think my throat is a little sore or, well, exhausted today.
Busy as always?
I am. I'm preparing everything for dinner this evening.
Already? You're obviously cooking something special, are you?
Oh, yes. After all, we have a special guest joining us. Guess who it is? Go on. You'll never guess.
What are those little eyes of hers shining?
Oh, dear. It is awkward when you already know the answer, isn't it? It's Ginny. Isn't that exciting? Oh, what a surprise. Yes, that's wonderful news.
Wow, Iris seems overjoyed at the idea.
I don't think she has many friends.
I can't wait to learn some pickpocketing tips for a real professional.
Oh, yeah, that does sound like fun.
I'm not sure that's entirely appropriate. Are you, Mr. Naruhodo?
By the way, Iris, what's Mr. Sholmes up to?
Early? Oh, he's been like that ever since he got back.
Hello, Mr. Sholmes?
I beg that you won't speak to me.
Sorry?
I don't know who you are, but kindly take your leave. As you can see, I am not here.
I don't know how to respond to that.
I do apologize. When he gets like this, he's completely oblivious to everything.
Yeah, I see.
Really, he behaves just like a child sometimes, Hurley does.
Mr. Sholmes and Iris have something of a parent and child relationship, don't they?
Yeah, except that Iris is clearly the parent here.
Come to think of it, I wonder where her real parents are.
What's the matter, Runo? You have ever such a funny look on your face.
Oh, no, it's nothing.
I know what it is. Why does this girl live here with Mr. Sholmes, you're wondering? Am I right?
How did you...
Oh, Runo, I can read you like a book.
This girl is dangerous.
Don't worry, you can ask me anything. I won't mind.
Yeah, it feels like the voice I'm doing for her is a little bit more reedy than it usually is. I should have done some tea before I started recording.
I'm sure you've been wondering why it is that I live here with Hurley, haven't you?
Well, it has crossed my mind. That and where are your real parents?
My mummy and daddy aren't with me anymore.
Oh.
Mummy passed away when I was born. And around the same time, my father... well, had to go to a faraway land because of one of the cases he and Hurley were working on.
Oh, God. No! Yeah, we know about that one. Oh, wait a minute. Did you say he and Hurley?
Yes. Daddy and Hurley were always solving mysterious cases together.
She didn't mention that before.
He wrote them all up in his diaries. That's what the metal chest is over there.
Really? He recorded them all?
So, you mean it's true? Mr. Sholmes really did have a partner with whom he tackled some of his most taxing cases?
Oh, yes. I mean, it's always nice to have one, isn't it?
So, Mr. Sholmes' partner was your father?
Exactly. Hurley told me I wasn't allowed to look in the chest. But that only made me want to look even more, so I opened it up.
And found your father's memoirs?
Yes, so I asked Hurley, who wrote these? He nearly fell off his chair. But then he told me. That's when I found out that the author of those accounts was my father.
So, Iris's father was Mr. Sholmes' partner.
I'd practically lived with Hurley all my life. I was tiny when he took me in. So, it came as quite a shock when Hurley told me he wasn't really my daddy, I mean.
Must have done. I wonder why Mr. Sholmes chose to tell you, and at such a young age.
Hurley says it's because he wouldn't have been able to hide it from me. Oh? Well, having lived with Hurley all these years, you might say that his ways have rubbed off on me. There are some things I can just see. Especially lies. I almost know when people are lying before they open their mouths sometimes.
Right.
Anyway, I was so fascinated when I read Daddy's diaries. That's what inspired me to write The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes, actually.
But that's the thing is, like, the timeline here doesn't really add up, does it? Because Dr. Wilson, who was the victim of the first case, died, like, a matter of months ago. But the way that she's telling it, she's been living with Herlock since long, like, and he died, Herlock's partner died long before that, so wait, hang on, what?
I'd always assumed Mrs. Holmes simply told you all these thrilling stories. Oh no, Hurley's hopeless like that. He forgets everything. As soon as he's solved a case, it all but vanishes from his mind. Oh, I see. The other day it was so embarrassing. As usual, he totally forgot about the case he just solved. So the very next day, he gathered together all the people involved and proceeded to solve the case again. It was quite a shock for everyone.
He could say that again.
You share your father's surname, don't you, Iris? That's right, Wilson. Daddy is Dr. John H. Wilson. I learnt from his diaries that he's a doctor of medicine, you see. That's what prompted me to study and study, so that I could earn a doctorate as well.
Yeah, I'm a little hoarse. Iris's father, who went to some distant land, and is a doctor by the name of John H. Wilson.
The court will now hold the trial of Ryunosuke Naruhodo. Kindly state before the court the name of the victim in this case.
Oh, the victim's name was Dr. John H. Wilson. That's right, visiting professor of medicine at Imperial Yume University. And the man who, in the most bizarre of circumstances, lost his life just before we left Japan. Miss Sasato?
Yes?
Perhaps we shouldn't pursue this conversation any further at this time.
I think that would be for the best.
Yeah, but seriously, that, like, wait, So Sherlock took her in when she was very, very little, and she never really knew her father at all, right? Which means he must have been gone. Okay, so the timeline would make sense if Wilson had been in Japan for like at least 6 or 7 years working on a case, right? Like that has to be how this thing works out. Because otherwise... So, by Ginny you mean Miss Lestrade, the young woman from the McGilda case 2 months ago, right?
Yes, who also stole my expensive smoke grenade launcher.
Experimental, rather.
Although, after that trial, I invited her back here and we had dinner together. And now we're the best of friends. Oh, what a lovely tale. Yes, now if I bump into her on the street, she runs away as fast as she can. Oh. And I chase after her down the back alleys.
Interesting idea of friendship.
And then I let her have the latest color smoke grenade I've developed. Oh. There are so many beautiful colors in the world, Jeannie makes me want to make a whole rainbow.
No. I suppose this means you've let Miss Lestrade keep the smoke grenade launcher, have you?
Yes, that's right. I'd got bored of it anyway. Hurley always reacts the same way when I shoot him with it now.
Poor Hurley.
Oh, I can't wait for Gina to arrive. It's been too long since she last came over. I'm so excited.
I just hope she does actually come. She will. Ah, my dear fellows, how good to see you.
Oh, Mr. Sholmes.
Why ever did you not make your presence known to me before?
Well, no matter now. So, how the devil are you?
We've been with you for most of the day.
Goodness, really?
Do tell me, Mr. Sholmes, is your violin unscathed?
My violin. Whatever are you talking about, dear madam?
Oh,
Never mind that now. I have something far more interesting to show you. Behold, my dear fellows.
Oh, another music box disc.
No, not another disc, Mr. Sato. This is the one Gregson demanded we hand over as evidence. Mr. McGilted's disc.
Oh my.
What's it doing here? You know, at times, Mr. Naruhodo, I think that though I have an undeniable turn for detection, I may well be even more adept at larceny.
Oh, that would be wonderfully exciting. I'd be your pickpocketing assistant. And Rulo could be our go-to lawyer if we ever got caught.
Right.
Plus, Susie has such beautiful handwriting, she could write all our menacing crime notifications. Yes, I'd be delighted.
I'm just gonna pretend this conversation never happened, I think. I don't understand. How did that disc come to be in your possession? I thought Inspector Gregson took it back to Scotland Yard. Quite correct. And that sort of uncompromising attitude is precisely why I always carry some of this.
That's above caramel, Mr. Sholmes.
Your one and only friend in times of loneliness, if I'm not mistaken. If you will humor me, my dear fellows, cast your minds back to when the good detective confiscated the disc.
I'll be taking whatever you said from Mr. McGildy's down to the yard, thank you very much. So Andy, do it?
Oh, yes, of course. If the police demand something as evidence, my dear fellow, we have no choice but to capitulate. It is all yours, Inspector. For the briefest of moments, I had the disc in my hand, did I not?
Yes, you did, but I still don't understand.
It was at precisely that moment that I summoned my one and only friend into action. I pressed the disc into a pair of bars, like this.
That's amazing!
The disc and all its minuscule protrusions have made an image in the caramel. Indeed, this caramel is quite exceptional. I developed it myself, you know. Suitably soft for making impressions, but resistant to melting, the result of a precisely controlled solution.
How extraordinary.
Carrying a pair of these on one's person frequently proves very useful indeed. Take a house key, for example. A simple press and its unique form is duplicated. I can enter anyone's property at will, and never without high sucrose nourishment.
Yeah, it sounds illegal.
From the image, I was able to create this. I confess I was most curious to know what manner of music would issue from the disc when played. That is a good question. Let's find out.
Do tell us then, Mr. Sholmes. What music does the disc play?
Well, unfortunately, I have no idea.
No idea?
None whatsoever. Are you familiar with the workings of a music box, my dear fellows?
No, I'm afraid not. Goodness, you don't know, Runo. Inside a music box, there's a special piece of metal called a comb. That's what produces the sound.
Well, yeah, that's... So this is also the principle that guides player pianos, but basically, you can think of the protrusions on a cylinder or a disc as a kind of, essentially a score, and some of these things, like especially if you have them printed out on if you have for a player piano, you'll typically have a hole punch arrangement thing that sort of gets fed into the player piano and sort of determines what notes gets played. They'll literally just be written out the same way that you would write out music on a score, which limits what you can do with them somewhat because not all music fits into Western music notation. But that's basically how you can think of them, is they're essentially a sort of tabulature that denotes which bits of the apparatus gets activated. And on simple music boxes, yeah, you'd have a comb, and that's where you get that like that plinky plonky sound that you're listening to right now. But if you are very mechanically clever, as some people indeed have been, you can make those little protrusions activate all kinds of mechanisms and play all kinds of instruments, especially if you pair it up with steam power, and then you can do some fun shit. I recommend like looking up player pianos and player organs on YouTube, because there's some fantastic frickin' ones. Anyway,
Inside a music box, there's a special metal piece called a comb. That's what produces the sound. Small protuberances pluck different teeth of the comb as they rotate past it, making the different notes. The first music boxes to be invented used a rotating cylinder with protuberances on it.
but over time, a new type of player was produced which uses discs such as these. With that development, the popularity of music boxes spread far and wide, all around the globe.
Why exactly?
Because the discs are easy to produce and can be interchanged to facilitate the playing of different tunes. There are a great many firms in Europe now manufacturing music boxes as a result. Slurring my words over here.
It's wonderful to be able to enjoy music, even when no performer was present.
But it is the very success of the invention that means that we are now presented with an insurmountable problem.
What do you mean?
As you may imagine, the construction of one firm's music box does not match that of any other. And we have no way of knowing in which music box this particular disc was designed to be played. There is no resolution to this problem, I'm afraid. It is quite intractable.
Ah, I see, so that's why.
Naturally, I tested the disc in those few music boxes I have at my disposal. But, as you can hear, to no avail. The results were equally unsatisfactory in this one. So, I am presently engaged in acquiring an example of all the music boxes ever made in Europe.
Every single one? That's Hurley for you, always taking things too far.
But my dear girl, an unsolved riddle is quite repugnant to my constitution.
But surely all the different types in Europe will amount to a huge volume of music boxes, won't it?
Yes, that is certainly true. In the worst case, I shall just have to ask you to vacate the attic room.
What?
Magnus McGilded. Not a name I expected to hear again so soon.
Yeah, it's only been 2 months since that grisly case. Mr. McGilded perished within hours of the trial's conclusion. Was it the curse of the Reaper? No one knows, still now. The omnibus was reduced to a pile of ash, not a shred of evidence remained. And with the man's death, the truth about the murder in which he was so intimately involved was buried. Even though we successfully established Mr. McGilded's innocence in the trial, the newspapers are still claiming that it remains an unsolved case. I mean, kinda does. The murder of the brickmaker, Mr. Thrice-Fired Mason. In the end, the truth of the matter remains a mystery. We still have no idea what really happened that night. And although Mr. McGilded was found not guilty through my defense, I still don't know that it was the right judgment or not.
It would appear the case is not yet closed.
Well, it's time I started getting things ready for dinner, I think. Ginny will be here before long.
Thank you, Iris.
Oh, well, you must let me help you then. Of course, Susie. There's plenty to do.
I think I shall investigate the condition of my faithful performing partner. Now then, where did I leave it?
Let this be a lesson to you, Mr. Sholmes. Never leave anything too precious with the pawnbroker.
Yes, you may be right.
Oh, that reminds me of something Mr. Winterbank said before. He said that he had a manuscript of irises in pawn, didn't he?
Did he?
Yeah, he definitely mentioned it. Mr. Sholmes's latest tale of otherworldly mysteries lies dormant in my storeroom, were his words, I believe. So you heard about that, did you? I expect you were as incensed as I was. Oh, yes, the idea of such a wonderful story languishing in Mr. Winterback's storeroom, gathering dust.
My dear madam, I'm quite sure I told you already. The pawnbroker's storeroom is the safest place for it, more secure than a bank's vault.
And what about your Stradivarius, Hurley? Was that safe and secure?
Well, there may be the occasional, mix-up.
Caused by a certain impetuous someone not too far from me now. Do you have any idea how long it took me to write that Baskerville story, Hurley?
Baskerville?
Oh, it sounds so exciting. The Hound of the Baskervilles. I should love to read it.
How do you know the name of the script, Miss Sato? You let something slip there.
What's going on here? Why does it feel like an icy chill just swept through the room? Susie, what did you just say? Well, you said the Hound of the Baskerville. But how could you know the full title? Well, that's
because Miss Sato is such a great fan of all the stories about Mr. Sholmes, of course.
But Runo, the Hound of the Baskervilles, has never been published.
What?
When I showed Hurley the manuscript, he told me that I wasn't allowed to publish it yet.
I don't understand.
That's why he said he'd keep it safe. Until it was the right time for the story to be made public, you see.
Oh, so that's why the manuscript is at Windybanks?
And yet, how could Susie here know its title? Well, Hurley, what's going on?
What is it, Mr. Sholmes?
It would appear our guest has arrived.
Convenient distraction. Oh, Miss Lestrade.
This was a bad idea. I need a warm welcome. I'm going.
No, wait, Mr. Lestrade.
We've all been eagerly awaiting your arrival.
Haven't we, Iris?
Oh, yes, just wait there, Ginny. We'll have everything ready in a jiffy. Come along, Susie. Oh, right, of course. It's a pleasure to see you here, Mr. Lestrade. Please, make yourself at home.
Don't stand in the doorway, my dear girl. Come along in. What say you to some Mendelssohn? I won't take no for an answer.
Meddlesome it is, then.
Excellent timing, Gina. Perfect. Hey, this wa guy.
That evening, Iris prepared us all a meal that was even more delicious than usual.
So either during the whole kerfuffle in the pawnbroker shop, Susato-san slipped back there and took a peek at the script because she couldn't help herself, or Dr. Wilson had a manuscript and she somehow got a look at it back in Japan. Huh, how did she know? Interesting.
Iris prepared us all a meal that was even more delicious than usual. Mr. Sholmes' violin performance was in no way meddlesome, and Gina, as we came to call her, taught us all how to steal things from one another without being noticed. Everyone thoroughly enjoyed themselves well into the night.
Oh man, I'd like a scene of that. I'd like to see him just hanging out and having fun. 15th of April, 9:34 p.m. Naruhodo Legal Consultancy. That was a very enjoyable evening, wasn't it?
Oh, yes. Iris's cooking was truly divine.
And I feel as though I can still hear the enchanting strains of Mr. Sholmes' violin even now.
Best of all, I bet I could steal the glasses from his lordship's face next time we're in court. Naruhodo-san, could I consult with you about something? I wonder.
What's the matter, Sasada-san?
It's about the telegram I received.
Ah, the one that arrived first thing this morning, I suppose. I completely forgot about that.
I've been summoned.
What? Summoned? What do you mean?
The telegram was from the Lord Chief Justice's office. Lord Strongheart has asked to see me.
The Lord Chief Justice? When?
Tomorrow morning.
What? Then we have to start preparing at once.
No, that won't be necessary, Mr. Naruhodo-san.
Mr. Naruhodo-san. Oh, god damn it.
I've been summoned alone.
Alone? What on earth for?
I have no idea. I suppose I shall find out tomorrow.
What's all this about? Whatever it is, it's making me feel very uneasy. Oh, who could that be, I wonder?
Good evening, friends.
Ah, Iris, hello again. And Gina. Like, this is a good application of tsundere. Like those tsundere vibes. Like, I didn't even want to come to dinner anyway, baka. Like that kind of thing. Because, like, she's a street urchin from London who has very good reasons not to trust adults or anyone. So, like, yeah, that's a really... This is a point where, like... that's a good enhancement of the character, like using the archetype, but to do something interesting with it.
And Gina, too. Yes, Gina's going to stay with us tonight. She's going to sleep in with me. Isn't that right, Ginny?
Well, yeah.
How lovely. Let me make a pot of tea. You know, I've learned so much today. Oh, what in particular? All those things Ginny showed us. Wasn't it wonderful?
You mean all those pickpocketing techniques? We had fun trying them out on each other, didn't we?
I think I've awakened a natural talent. I could earn a living from it.
You might be getting ahead of yourself a little there. So, what brings you up to our humble quarters at this late hour?
Well, you see, I came to return this.
Wait, what? That's mine!
Oh my, however did you... I told you, didn't I? I have a natural talent for it.
Oh yeah, I'd forgotten. Iris literally is a child genius.
So anyway, here, you can have it back. Not that I really understand why you wear it, though.
Ah, thank you.
All right then, good night.
Yes, good night.
So this is your office, is it? What do you think, Ginny?
I think I wouldn't fancy my chances with a lawyer what lives in a place like this.
Yes, me too.
It seems as though Iris here still has something she'd like to talk about.
I suppose she probably wants to talk about the manuscript.
Yeah, I suppose she probably does. Actually, can I... No, okay. The thing is, I want... I wish there was a model viewer, because I really do want to take a proper look at, like, Iris's character design, like, beyond just, like, the upper torso we get to see all the time. Because there is something interesting going on here. Like, on the one hand, part of it is, like, sort of very silly steampunk nonsense, right? Like, it's sort of, like, it's very overwrought with, like, these sort of elaborately stitched gloves and, like, this stitched leather skirt and, like, the little frilly shirt and, like, the ties and, like, that really isn't actually that much Victorian fashion, but more sort of filtered through the development of the Lolita Goth style and sort of modern steampunky reinterpretations of that particular aesthetic. But I do think here, like, this is also something that's sort of present in all of the London stuff. Like Gina, for example, like Gina Lestrade, she also has, like, she's a street urchin from London, but she's wearing some mighty fine clothes for someone who lives on the street in London in, like, the early 1900s at the latest. But with Iris specifically, I think there is something going on here, like this very highly manicured, very sort of anime girl style, like this very, very anime that makes her look even a little bit out of place in London. There is a point to it, which is that she is like this very innocent character, like this very sort of pure, innocent character who lives a little bit in a fantasy world. Like, she's a child genius, and she knows a lot more than she lets on, but she is like a 6 or 8 year old, however old she is. And she does live a lot in fantasy worlds. Like, she lives a lot through, like, Sherlock's adventures, or Herlock's adventures, rather. She lives a lot through, like, sort of a scientific approach to the world, and she doesn't really know hardship in the way that you would if you were forced to, like, live a normal life. She knows hardship emotionally from the loss of her freaking parents. Jesus Christ! Like, she knows emotional hardship, but not like the hardship of air quotes the real world in the same way. And I think the character design is making a point about that too, that, like, she is playing dress up because, like, that's her life. Like, she can do that. She can play dress up. And sort of dress up as a sort of a highly idealized, highly stylized version of a child prodigy. Like, to wear that sort of overwrought, silly thing just because it looks pretty. Which is like the Gothic Lolita thing, is the thing of, like, stylizing and heightening certain elements of sort of Regency era, Victorian, Edwardian, British fashion sense and European fashion sense. And in order just to emphasize the things that are pretty, the things that are sort of like, that carry that certain aesthetic. And I think for her character design, it is making a sort of point. Like, it's also just about making her a cute little anime child who's very cosplayable. Like, that's definitely also part of it. But it is also, I think, there is a character design commentary there. In the same way that there is with Susato-san and like Naruhodo still wearing their Japanese clothes. Like, Susato-san goes around in, I don't know if it's a kimono, like, specifically, or if it's some thing that's called something else, yukata, something like that, but she's wearing very specifically Japanese clothes, and Naruhodo is doing the same thing, even though his Japanese clothes, to be fair, are these highly westernized. And that's the other thing, like, about Naruhodo's character design, is that he's wearing Western fashion. Like, the university uniforms and stuff that he's wearing there, that's something that was imported during the Meiji Restoration. Like, that was something that came to Japan very much from the West. Along with the concept of a university, certainly the concept of a westernized university. They had educational institutions before, obviously, but the idea of, like, a Western university, very much an imported thing. So, like, Naruhodo also is wearing the aesthetics of the West as filtered through Japan. Like, so there's a lot of good character design going on. That's the thing, is, like, most of the character design in this game is not like Iris's. It's not this hyper-stylized, sort of extremely heightened, deeply unrealistic version of sort of Western European early 19th and 20th century fashions filtered through, like, a Japanese lens. But Iris is very specifically that. And I don't know, I think there might be something interesting going on there. Anyway, the manuscript.
Iris, I suppose you're hoping to talk about the manuscripts, aren't you? Aren't you going to tell me? I'm so sorry. I need a little more time, please. All right, I understand.
Okay, this is making me think that she knows about it from Dr. Wilson somehow.
I hope I haven't made you feel awkward. Oh, no, not at all, Iris, not at all. I don't know what's all this about, really, but... It's a story you made up, is it, Iris? The mental script, or whatever you call it? It's not exactly a story that I made up. It's something I read in Daddy's diaries. Daddy's? That's right. I don't suppose I've mentioned it to you before, Ginny, but... My daddy was Hurley's assistant once, his partner. I? They solved all sorts of strange and mysterious cases together. Is that all right, mister?
Well, apparently so. I was as surprised as you are, though.
And Daddy wrote all the details of every single case down, you see, in his diaries. So I study them and write my stories based on what actually happened.
So, where's your old man now, then?
He had to go away on urgent business to a faraway land, and he'll be gone a very long time. So, I've never really met him.
Oh, right. Come to think of it, I don't know anything about Gina's parents either. Perhaps we should ask her. Perhaps you shouldn't. Like, maybe that's a... The girl lives on the street and steals to survive. Maybe that's not a subject you should raise, buddy. Just saying. Okay, well. Iris, this Hound of the Baskerville story? I take it that it's another tale inspired by your father's accounts?
That's right. I thought it was fascinating. But it's different somehow. From the other cases, I mean.
Oh? How?
I don't really know. But it must be special in some way. Because after I'd written it and I showed the manuscript to Hurley, he turned as white as a sheet. It was the first time I've ever seen him like that.
It pains me to have to say this after you've toiled over it for so long, Iris. But this story must not be published at this time, under any circumstances.
But why not? It's one of my best works.
I'm not at liberty to say. Not now. So please do not ask me.
All right then. I won't.
But I do solemnly swear that I'll explain everything one day, Iris, when the time is right. And that's how the manuscript came to be with Mr. Windybank, isn't it?
Yes. Hurley said it had to be somewhere very safe.
It really gets my goat, it does. He's treating me like a child. She... Never mind.
It's me, that's what it is, keeping secrets like that.
I'm sure Mr. Sholmes isn't trying to be mean. If he said he wasn't at liberty to talk about it, I'm sure there must have been a very good reason.
I think so too.
You're too trusting for your own good. Well, you can't pull the wool over my eyes. Sholmes is lying to Iris. I bet my life on it. What?
Hurley's lying to me?
Okay, that seems like a thing that should be explored. Anyway, let's poke our nose where it definitely doesn't belong. Renosuke, why? I've realized I don't know anything about your parents, Gina.
I ain't got any, have I? Never did have. Oh.
Look, the East End's full of orphans like me. No one wants nothing to do with us from the minute we're born, not even our mums. This is true, by the way, like for... Oh my god, okay, so... Child mortality in London for a very long time was somewhere around 90% to 98%. It was like... It was very, 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 very bad. And it's for many reasons, like lack of hygiene by doctors, lack of hygienic living conditions, extreme poverty, deprivation, like the inability to get clean water in the city. Like there's lots of reasons why it was, but it was child mortality was high. Very high. Very high. And mortality in general, especially among the working classes, was also extremely high. Like a lot of moms died in childbirth. Like just a lot of parents just simply didn't survive and left behind children. And so because there was this absolutely horrendously skyrocket high child mortality, that also influenced the way that children were seen. And so what you get when you look into the historical record of London, like up until the 20th century and even like you would hear stories about carriages running over dead babies in the streets, like just children dead in the gutter because they're like no social safety net. Like the government was not interested and did not feel responsible for taking care of any of these kids. And it like rough shit, like stuff that you can get traumatized from picturing. Like just corpses, you know, little cold bodies on the... So yeah, London was like that, and there emerged a cultural view of children in London especially, but in British culture also, because of that high child mortality, where children were not individually necessarily very valued. Like, oh, it's a kid. Yeah, well, we'll pop out another 5 before we're done, like, before we're dead, so fuck them. Like, and again, it's like, things were probably quite different in the countryside, but we don't have as many records or details about that. And so you get a lot of orphans like Gina. And this is like where novels like Oliver Twist come from, places like that, like from that kind of culture. Like that's part of why Dickens wrote it, is that like he wanted to talk about the plight of orphans, among other things. So yeah, this game is not interested in examining that. Thank fuck, because I don't know that I'd necessarily feel very mentally good about that. But that's some of the historical background for the stereotype of like the Victorian street orphan. It comes from a history of children being disposable and thrown out into the streets to fend for themselves. And like maybe they'd get lucky and survive long enough to be able to fend for themselves, but you know, imagine what it's like having lived a life like that, you know? Ugh.
We all stick together. Yeah, little ones look after the little ones. Make sure they get by. Oh, so that's why you're a pickpocket. Nah, diamonds my life. I love it.
Yeah, like that's also where a lot of like the gangs of London, a lot of them emerged from that culture where you get all these street kids and like criminals living well outside the law and below the poverty line with no one looking out for them, and the law only ever their enemy, because like the only interactions they ever have with the police is the police chasing them away from the place that they live or preventing them from getting a meal for the day. This is where you get a lot of gang culture in London as well. A lot of child gangs, a lot of thieves, a lot of thieves guilds, like just poor people trying to organize with one another in order to survive some really fucking brutal conditions. Anyway, I'll stop depressing everyone now.
I'll get a kick out of this every time I miss some pompous idiot's purse.
Yeah, fuck it, stick it to the rich man, Gina.
That's how we're all afford to eat. I'm like Robin Hood, don't I? It's how I see it. Oh, Gina. How do you think about this sometimes? What it'd be like to have parents, I mean. Always thought it'd make everything right. Well, let me listen to what Iris just said. It sounds like having parents ain't always easy either. Oh. I mean, if you know you never had them, you don't feel like you always want to meet them. It's true. I do want to see Daddy. so much.
Oh, man. How am I supposed to break that to her? Oh, God, she's gonna find out. Why do you hurt me like this? I tried to love you, Ace Attorney. Fuck.
Oh, Iris.
Moving on to another subject.
Gina, what did you mean when you said that you know Mr. Sholmes is lying to Iris? Well, he reckons he put that manuscript or whatever, right? But come on, it's obviously a load of rubbish. Oh my, why would you think that, Gina? It's simple. That story was really old Windybeck's storeroom. There's no way someone from halfway around the world, in other words, you, could know about her. Ah. Sorry, Iris, but if you ask me, he sold it. Well, telling you. But Hurley would never do something like that. I'm sure of it. Grown-ups do a lot worse than that, believe me. Barefaced liars, the lot of them. You just ain't realised it yet. I'm telling you, that metal script ain't no Windybeck's. You'd soon see if you had a look. Even if you think you can trust him, I don't. That Sholmes is a liar like the rest of them. If I'm honest, I have wondered if Hurley's telling me the truth sometimes. Sorry? Oh, but I don't mean that I think he sold it. I mean that I sometimes wonder if he might have hidden my manuscript somewhere. Somewhere I don't know. Even though it's wrong of me to doubt him. Don't be too hard on yourself, Iris. Oh my goodness, look at the time. Come along, Ginny. We should go back downstairs. Yeah, all right. And please, don't mention any of this to Hurley, will you? No, no, of course not. Good night then, Iris. Good night, Gina. You must make me make breakfast for you tomorrow morning. I insist. Oh, yes, please. I can't wait, Susie. Good night, then.
Iris, it sure is easy to forget, isn't it? Sometimes she speaks just like an adult. But deep down, she's still just a child. Who wants to see her daddy? Fuck, that just stung me right in the chest. God damn it.
Well, I think it's time that I turned in for the night too, Naruhodo-san.
Yeah, just try to sleep, knowing what you're keeping from Iris. You monsters! On the other hand, like, yeah, no, I couldn't. Like, look at her in the face and be like, your dad's dead? No, that would take some fucking work to build up to, man. Jesus. Dr. John H. Wilson, Iris's father. But also, the name of the murdered visiting professor at Yuma University. It can't be a mere coincidence. There's something deeper going on.
Mr. Naruhodo. Mr. Naruhodo.
That voice. That's Mr. Sholmes. Oh, Sholmes, is it? What's going on? It's in the middle of the night. It's Miss Lestrade. She's gone. Gina? She was supposed to be sleeping in Iris's room, but her bed is empty. Well, she's an independent young woman. She probably decided to go home, no? I think not. From speaking to her before she retired, I received the distinct impression that she was looking forward to breakfasting with Mr. Sato. No, I don't believe the girl has gone home, but I've been waiting for over an hour now. Oh, over an hour? Oh. If you'll indulge me, look out of the window, my dear fellow. What's this about? Wait a minute. Why is there a light on at this time of night? That's Mr. Windybank's pawnbrokery. Mr. Windybank's? Oh no.
It's simple. If this story was really old Windybank's storeroom, there's no way someone from halfway around the world. In other words, you can know about her. Sorry, Iris, but if you ask me who sold it, well, telling you.
Could Gina have gone? It seems you have some knowledge of the situation, Mr. Naruhodo. Sorry? Oh, no, no, not really. Well, anyway, we must investigate. At once.
Oh, at once.
Miss Asado. 16th of April, 1:14 a.m., Baker Street. So this is where that camera system is going to come into play, isn't it? Yeah.
The door to Windybank's. It's open. And the lamp is burning.
It must be Gina, mustn't it? Oh no, there's another person, in case you'd forgot, who also has some interest in the contents of the shop. Let us hope it is nothing more sinister. What? Come, there's not a moment to lose. Clearly something is afoot inside. Okay. There's no one here. Oh yes, there is.
Ah, Mr. Shams! Mr. Shams!
What? Has Sholmes been shot? Leave me, Mr. Naruhodo. But after them, go. Right. Blast! I've lost him.
Hello. What were here? You know how much it's raised for this pawnbroker's set? Or you know something about that?
Officer, come with me. It's my friend, Mr. Sholmes. He's been shot.
Shut up!
With the policeman close behind me, I ran back to Windybank's.
Mr. Sholmes!
Mr. Naruhodo.
How bad is it? Never mind me, but there's much at stake. Behind that door. In the storeroom. Hurry! It's Gina!
What a twist! And what a natural jumping off point to end an episode. So if you want to see what happens next, I'm afraid, my friends, you're gonna... Oh, that's the wrong one. You're gonna have to come back for the next episode, which will be up on the channel at some point or another. If you're a member of the channel, though, maybe it's up already for you in early access, because that's sometimes that's there. So if you want to, you can get early access on the channel, or you can support me on Patreon, or use my merchandise store, my tip jar. All of that helps me pay my rent, but you absolutely do not have to. Thank you very much for watching. Remember to wear a mask, wash your hands, take as many vaccines as it's going to take, and act with solidarity towards those who are working to make the world a better place.